And good afternoon. Welcome to Life Unrehearsed. My name is Matt Delvecchio, specializing in life transitions, downsizing in the senior living industry.
And I'm Corrie Sirota, a clinical social worker and psychotherapist specializing in grief and loss.
Coming right up on the first half of Life Unrehearsed, the latest about dementia care from a medical perspective and from a caregiver perspective. We have Dr. Serge Gauthier and Claire Webster as our upcoming guests that will be sharing some valuable information with us. Corrie, as you are very much aware, November is Children's Grief Awareness Month, and I think you have a very important event coming up, don't you?
We do. So all month, all over North America, there are a lot of online and in-person events for to highlight and honor the fact that it is Children's Grief Awareness Month. Well, for the first time ever in Montreal, we're getting the Olympic Stadium to light up in blue, which is the
nice
color to commemorate Children's Grief Awareness. So on Thursday, November 18th, which is Children's Grief Awareness Remembrance Day, we're going to be out there with our Myra's Kids Foundation sweatshirts on and just around to take some pictures and to highlight and support this very, very important project and very important cause.
Nice. Way to go. Good for you and the whole Myra's Foundation team. It's a very special cause. What do we have coming up on the second half, Corrie?
Coming up on the second half, we're going to continue our new segments around helping moms and dads. So this week, we figured that it kind of made sense with the holidays coming up. Probably families are going to be gathering. This is probably a really important time for families to have some of those important family conversations, particularly with their aging parents. So we have our very own Matt Delvecchio, who's going to be sharing his wise words. That's all coming up after the 3:30 news.
Yeah, looking forward to that, Corrie. All right. Now, did you know that over 500,000 Canadians are living with dementia today? And according to the Alzheimer's Society, that number is expected to reach 962,000 by 2030. That's almost double, Corrie, in the next less than 10 years, in fact. And 1 in 5 Canadians, including many of our listeners, have experienced caring for someone living with dementia. Something I see almost every day in my line of work, assisting families. When it comes time to look for potential home care options or senior residence options, I see it all the time, Corrie. So we figured, and we are blessed to have 2 Montrealers that are prominent leaders around the world concerning dementia. And we have Dr. Serge Gauthier. He's the director of the Alzheimer and Related Disorders Research Unit, McGill University, Research Center for Studies in Aging. And we also have Claire Webster, founder and ambassador, McGill Dementia Education Program, and the founder and president of Caregiver Crosswalk. And we are really lucky to have them on the show. Dr. Serge Gauthier, Claire, welcome to Life Unrehearsed.
Thank you.
Bonjour, Monsieur Gauthier. Thank you for coming on. Both of you have been on before, and there is tremendous. We post a little Facebook teaser upcoming, and you won't believe the interest we are getting. And so we want to thank you for coming on. Let's get right into it. You were both co-authors, along with Dr. José Moret and Dr. Pedro Rosa Neto, in the recently published World Alzheimer's Report 2021, Journey Through the Diagnosis of Dementia. This was actually a really big deal. Dr. Gauthier, we're going to start with you. What are some of the major highlights from a healthcare professional and a medical perspective that was in this World Alzheimer's Report?
Thank you for your interest. Indeed, we surveyed over 1,000 clinicians around the world about what they're doing, how they're testing people, and of course we ask also people who just had the assessment. I'll let Claire talk about that. So we have surveys. The main message is that there's a lot of people out there who need an assessment. We estimate that only about half of the people in our country who have dementia ever had a diagnosis, a formal diagnosis of dementia, and the cause of dementia. The other thing we found is that some countries in lower and middle income kind of areas of the world are even more underdiagnosis, 75%. Now, the thing is, those who have a diagnosis of dementia who answered our surveys, and this is also the experience you may have had, Matt and Claire can amplify that, they're starving for more information. So it's not just you have a diagnosis of dementia, good luck. It's what next? The more positive things I can highlight from the report is that most clinicians are open to the new diagnostic tools. That include remote assessments. You can do some memory tests, maybe online, for screening purpose, and someone who has concern or someone you know who cannot make it to the office, for instance, because of COVID restrictions. So Zoom and some remote testing may be possible. The other new thing, and I'll end with that as a first set of comments, is this blood test coming very soon. A blood test that will show in someone with symptoms some proteins in the blood that come from the brain, and they may help for a diagnosis of the cause of the cognitive decline.
Wow, that's fascinating. I'd love to throw it over to you, Claire. What about from the caregiver perspective?
So we surveyed, persons receiving a diagnosis and care partners, and obviously the care partners were the ones who responded the majority of time to the survey. And what is clear is that dementia around the world does not discriminate. It doesn't matter what religion, color of skin, or geographic location. People are all experiencing the same realities. And what we really saw was, first and foremost, was that people really had a lack of knowledge and awareness about the signs and symptoms. So, people think often that, dementia is all about memory, but it often has a lot of behavior issues that begin. So the common highlights were the fact of lack of knowledge and awareness of the signs and symptoms, a lot of confusion around which healthcare professional to first consult with upon, being concerned that there's something off, right? Some people think they need to see a family doctor. Some people may think they need to see a psychiatrist or a neurologist. So there's a lot of confusion. And also there's limited access to healthcare services. This is not only in low and middle-income countries, but in high-income countries as well. But as Dr. Gauthier mentioned earlier, what really was made loud and clear from a global standpoint was the lack of information and education that was provided to the families upon receiving a diagnosis, not only about the illness, but as well as how to really obtain services from their community. And lastly, we also talked about the impact that COVID was having, because we felt it's important in the 2020 and 2021 year to talk about how was COVID impacting care partners. And what was loud and clear was the real isolation, the feeling of isolation, the feeling of, interruption of services, interruption of lives that people were feeling, and from a global perspective.
Listening to Life on Rehearse with Matt and Corrie, and that's the voice of Claire Webster. We also have Dr. Serge Gauthier on the line, and we're talking about the latest in dementia care. Congratulations, by the way, on this World Alzheimer's Report that literally made it around the world, and that was just published a couple of months ago. Dr. Gauthier, we're going to throw it back to you, and I get asked this question quite a bit, and there's a difference between normal aging versus early dementia. Can you explain the difference, please?
The short answer is it's how much the changes you experience in your ability to think influence your daily life. And you may need the one who lives with you or your coworkers or your friends to give you honest feedback on that. In other words, when you go for your assessment to your family doctor, it's better to go with someone who knows you well. So together, and the clinician, you can answer the questions.
So I just, that said, if someone is concerned about their loved one, we have to go out to traffic soon, but if you could very quickly review the proper diagnostic process, what that should look like.
History. So there's no replacement than meeting someone, a clinician who will take the time to listen to your story. In the report, we go into what you can prepare, your list of medications, your medical history, but also what's concerning you. Is it your memory, your change of mood, when you can't find something? As Claire was saying, it's not just memory. It could be lots of subtle things, like where's my car in the parking lot?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And, one of the things, besides the World Alzheimer's Report, and I know, Claire, you were very much also involved in something called Dementia, Your Companion Guide. Feedback from this has been incredible, and I know a ton of work went into this.
And we're talking about the latest in dementia care with Dr. Serge Gauthier and Claire Webster. We've already mentioned this quite spectacular launch of a World Alzheimer's Report, But we also know that you were both very much involved and equally, if not more important, with an educational guide from McGill called Dementia, Your Companion Guide. I believe it was launched several weeks ago. So let's start with you, Claire. The feedback has been incredible. Can you share with our listeners more about the guide?
My dream project under the McGill Dementia Education Program, which was spearheaded by Dr. Serge Gauthier, and he really led a team of multidisciplinary healthcare professionals who came together to put together this free English and French Dementia Companion Guide. Thanks to the Grace Start Foundation, we were able to put together this incredible tool, which it's filled with illustrations, easy to understand text that really helps not only the person who is diagnosed, but their care partner to understand the evolution of the illness, how to live well with dementia, how it's going to have an impact on activities of daily living, managing some challenging behaviors, and most importantly about self-care. So this Dementia Companion Guide is available for free at mcgill.ca/dementia. Thanks to the donation that we have received, we will be translating it into multiple other languages. We're currently working on the Spanish version right now. And it is really an A to Z comprehensive booklet. Right now it's available to download, but we're hoping to have it distributed throughout all the hospitals in the greater Montreal area.
Claire, this is such a wonderful guide. It's so needed. You've come a long way, Claire, from your first diagnosis with your mom. And what did they tell you when that happened?
Good luck, Mrs. Webster.
Good luck, Mrs. Webster. So it's such an important project. I know there are many, many caregivers that will benefit from this. We will give out the contact info for that guide at the end of this interview as well. And Dr. Gauthier, what are your thoughts about the guide?
Well, it's a dream come true for Claire, but it's also a dream come true for many clinicians who need something to hand out after the diagnosis. And since now people come earlier and earlier in the course of their condition, there's half of the booklet is for people with the condition. So many of them we think will benefit from the information and plan ahead for things that are upcoming, and the other half for the carers. We use an approach which is stages of condition, stages of disease, a bit like cancer or other chronic conditions. And we're going to use that same strategy for the next World Alzheimer Report 2022.
Fantastic. Really, really, we talked earlier about the fact that someone gets diagnosed and then no one knows what to do. And Claire, you know me enough to know I'm all about the now what factor. This is it. This seems to me this is the now what factor. And I'm so thrilled, and amongst many other reactions, to know that this exists. And I can't wait to get a copy as well. Now let me ask Claire, what's a recommendation, maybe your top recommendation that you would suggest to people who have a loved one who's experiencing or is suffering from dementia?
Well, unfortunately, we know that there's currently no cure. So it's really about becoming as educated as possible and understanding, the evolution of the illness, how to best prepare oneself for the stages that are following, and really from the very beginning, reach out to the resources that are available in the community that could support both the person who received a diagnosis as well as the care partner. And also what's important with a diagnosis of dementia, as you are going to be talking about, in the next half of your show, it's about ensuring that your financial and legal affairs are in order. Unfortunately, as this disease evolves, the person who has it is not going to be able to make those important decisions. So the more prepared that you are, the more forward thinking that you are, it's very important to be prepared as time goes on.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Matt Delvecchio here with Corrie Srota, and that was Claire Webster. We also have Dr. Serge Gauthier on the line, and we're talking about the latest in dementia care. And you talk about resources, Claire. As you know, I'm on the board of Nova West Island, and that's just one of many, many resources for dementia care and Alzheimer's, and of course the Alzheimer's Society and Alzheimer's Group, Inc. And we're going to proudly be able to recommend one major new resource, and it is this guide, Claire, Dementia, Your Companion Guide. Now, Dr. Gauthier, so often I hear, there is no cure for Alzheimer's. There has been tremendous amount of money, time, and resources. You are at the leading edge of research around the world, yet still no cure. Is there any hope?
Yes, there is hope indeed, not for a cure, but for slowing down the progression, especially if the diagnosis is done earlier. Alzheimer's disease, as the leading cause of dementia, is more complex than we thought even 10 years ago. It's more than 2 proteins building up in your brain over at least 20 years before you get symptoms. There's other components, such as inflammation, that we're now slowly being able to recognize with special tests, including brain imaging and spinal fluid or blood tests.
You know what? Just one, you mentioned something very important there. I often get asked, what is the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's? They are often intertwined, but that is not the case. And why not ask Dr. Serge Gauthier about this question that we get so often? What is the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's?
It's very timely, your question, because Alzheimer's disease is being redefined as we speak as a condition a bit like chronic diabetes. It's in your brain, but it may not show up in your lifetime. The protein buildup, loss of nerve cells, you may compensate for over a lifetime. So you may have Alzheimer's disease-like changes in your brain, but no dementia. Dementia would now be considered a late stage of Alzheimer's disease. Another part of the answer is that Alzheimer's is not the only cause of dementia. So you may have repeated head injuries, multiple strokes, alcohol abuse. So there are other factors that can lead to dementia, especially in younger people, younger than 65.
That, I think, makes things a lot clearer for so many. So thank you for clarifying that. Matt, I just want to say, Matt and I had the privilege of going to your sensitization center at McGill. Could somebody, maybe Claire, you can talk a little bit about that?
So the simulation center is essentially, I call it like an underground hospital for medical students. I mean, we were running our workshop program there, where it's the largest simulation and learning center of the universities in Canada, where students are able to practice on mannequins or real hospital equipment in order to learn. And we had an apartment there where actors were portraying what it was like to have dementia. We were having care partners come in and full-day workshop with different healthcare professionals. We're really hoping to return to this program and inviting the public back to the simulation center in 2022. For now, it's only still for students, but it's a very, very unique place of learning.
It really is, and you guys did a great job with that. We're going to wrap up, but I'm going to give both of you a quick 20, 30 seconds. For caregivers that are listening, they have a very tough job. Sometimes it is just too overwhelming. They're throwing in the towel, and the anxiety levels have reached a point where it is extremely tough. I'll start with you, Claire. What quick words of advice can you give to those that might be saying, geez, this is just too much?
Well, I think that, as a caregiver, you tend to always put yourself last. And, people need to know that they have permission to have a life, and they have to put themselves first. If they don't take care of themselves, they will not be able to give the best quality of care to the people that they love.
Such a good
so they
point.
really have to put themselves first, like almost become incredibly selfish about it.
Such a good point. And Dr. Gauthier, real quick.
Yes, find a clinician that will take the time to listen to you, that you can reach by email. They're not easy to find, but when you find one, it's worth it.
Absolutely. You got to push hard for that. Thank you both so much. Claire, we promised everyone that where can we access this Dementia, your companion guide from McGill?
So you can access it at mcgill.ca/dementia. You can also access the World Alzheimer Report on our site as well. And I really highly encourage people to read the World Alzheimer Report. We wrote it in a way so that everyone could understand and learn from it. So those are 2 invaluable resources that are available for everyone at mcgill.ca/dementia.
All right. Thank you so much. Dr. Serge Gauthier, thank you. And Claire Webster, one final question for you, Claire. How can people get a hold of you? You really do help families.
They can get a hold of me at claire@carecrosswalk.com or www.carecrosswalk.com or always at mcgill.ca/dementia as well.
Wonderful. Well, thanks to both of you.